Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the interview, the LA edition. I'm excited because I got a real LA native. She gonna tell you where she's from. I know a little bit about her. I know she's from Watts, representing, always. But she's built an incredible life for herself here in Los Angeles. So I am honored and appreciative of having Brittney Palmore, ladies and gentlemen, on the interview today. So I don't want to tell too much of your story, but if you don't mind, is letting people know who you are and currently what you do.
Of course. So I'm Brittany, as many people may know. Most people know me due to lashing, but yeah, Brittany, and I currently am a mom, wife, business owner. Yeah, I am in the beauty field. I love doing eyelash extensions. That's kind of pretty much what opened the door for me in the beauty industry. Well, kind of makeup because I started by doing going to makeup school, but majority of people know me by doing lash extensions.
Right on. And I know your name of your company is
Larry Lux.
Larry Lux, right? And I like to get this out the way early. If people want to find out where that's at, where can they go to find
They can
B
find
Lux?
me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All the handle for each is Larry Lux. LARIELUXE. Very simple.
All right, so let's get into it. I got my nephew in here, which is your son as well.
Yes.
Cinco,
He's in the back
little
making
Bruce.
the
That's
noise.
what he do. So y'all respect it. This is a mom working.
Yes.
Um, so I want to talk to you a little bit about your experience growing up in Los Angeles. Can you tell us where you grew up and kind of what your experience was?
Yes. So I grew up in, as you know, you mentioned earlier, I grew up in Watts, California. Um, Crazy experience growing up. Geez, where do I start? So I grew up where I grew up specifically was really crazy. So I grew up a block. I lived a block right before the Jordan Down projects. I don't know if many people are familiar with that, but if you're from Atlanta and you're watching this, I'm sure you know exactly where that is. I grew up on this street called Anzac, which was crazy. A little bit about my background. Um, Mom and dad. I had a cousin that was kind of like a brother to me. We all lived there growing up. It was pretty crazy, but what is it specifically that you want to know about that, if you don't mind me asking?
More specifically, I guess I'll ask in detail. What advantages do you think that you were able to
Oh.
gain from being where you're from?
Um, the advantages I feel like I was able to gain was kind of hmm. I feel like I was able to kind of experience the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of seeing how people live in poverty, I would say. Growing up really um rough, seeing, having friends and stuff like that that's in those areas.
So even rough, real quick. So what you
Mhm.
mean by rough? Let's stop there because it's a term that people use and everywhere has a rough area,
Right.
and but in LA, specifically where you from, it has its own tune that it sings to. So what would you describe? Like what? Give me some examples of what was rough.
So, okay, so let me reframe and say let me rephrase what I was saying. So, growing up at that time, I thought, I didn't realize until I actually got older that it was rough, because living in that environment,
Right,
growing up in
right,
that
right.
environment, it was normal to me, right? So I would say, um, jump right into like the violence, like hearing gunshots and things like that was kind of like a normal to me until I actually grew up and started experiencing different parts of life, going to different areas, living in different neighborhoods, and realizing, okay, this was kind of rough, having all my friends and surrounded by everybody that's gang members and affiliate and stuff like that. I would say that's my definition of rough, when it comes down to growing up rough and my experience growing up in Watts.
Because people they think LA like, how can it be rough when you got palm trees, sand, and the beach? Right? Well, what are y'all mad about? So I don't think people really understand that, but I agree with you. It's more and tied to like the gang experience that you have to walk through. And as a woman, we know men go through their own experience, but what do you feel like were some of the experience as a woman that made it difficult? Like what are some of the things you had to go through being a woman in such a place?
Um, Shoot, where do I begin? Just waking up every day, doing my day to day. Like I would get, so my experience was a little different growing up. I didn't really do a lot that I feel like the other, like, how can I say? People will usually think other things that people usually do, like though they would, okay, so for example, my parents, growing up, because we lived in such a rough area, or a non-safe environment, I would say, um my parents kind of really didn't want me out in the environment. They didn't want me really hanging out in the streets and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of times where, for example, I tell my husband all the time about how my cousins were really close to me. They were like my siblings growing up,
Mhm.
because they would come and stay at our house for the summer. But when they would come over, we was really like kind of in a house.
Right.
Um, my parents, they were really, how can I say this? They were really,
What do you feel like you were sheltered to a degree?
yeah,
Okay.
they did. However, they did allow me to kind of like have my freedom a little bit as I got older, but I
Because you
was
got to see
pretty
what it
sheltered.
do a little bit, right?
Yeah, right. But it wasn't until we actually moved from Watts until I actually started having more freedom. But it
Mhm.
wasn't, I know that it was just because they did not want me being exposed to certain
Yeah.
things, or they didn't want, me to kind of be out and getting involved with certain things. Because I had a lot of friends who are now that still live in Watts or around those areas, and I kind of outgrown them. We don't really talk anymore.
Naturally,
A
right.
lot of people probably feel like I kind of like forgot about them because I'm at a different space, but it's never that. It's just we no longer kind of relate to the same things. We kind of
Yeah.
don't have this same similarities when it comes down to our lifestyle and life choices and everything like that. But to kind of sum it up, I would say, to kind of initially answer your question as far as my advantages and things like that, I feel like being able to be exposed to like not the so great life so early on allowed me to be able to kind of navigate through life a little better, and know that, hey, this is like kind of where I come from. This is, I don't want to keep using the word rough, but this is like the rough part of life,
Right,
and
right.
it kind of made me wonder what else was out there,
Yeah.
what else was better, and kind of just wanted a better life for myself overall.
Yeah, I tend to find out when I ask this question too, for people they always feel like it gives them an opportunity to navigate a lot sooner
Hmm.
than the average person through issues or danger or people.
Yeah, so that's funny because I've always been. I know that no matter where I go in life, I'm always like really, really street smart, and I pay attention to certain things that other people probably won't, and I know it's strictly because of my experience growing up. Me
Right.
me being able to be exposed to certain things and know what danger looks like, or
Like I feel like if you went to go buy a car, you can go without your husband and he can't, you know, bro,
absolutely.
it's not for me. Yeah, you're not, and that's that. So I agree with that. And that's not, commonly speaking, that's usually not the case. But
Hmm.
I can imagine that.
Oh yeah, like I don't know if he ever told you this story, but like I changed my own tire brakes before on my car.
Right. He know what to do with himself. He's like, what is this?
Like,
But yeah, I agree. I think that it does give you that sense of independence and awareness, being
hmm.
from there, especially as a woman. I can only imagine such a different experience. And as the opposite, there's advantages and there's also disadvantages.
Right.
I think I just asked you what were the advantages. What would you point out would be like, man, this kind of set me back because I'm from here.
Oh, now I can kind of get into it. I feel like Now, don't get me wrong. Let me say this before I say anything else. Like, I know that my parents did the best that they can. Obviously, my mom and dad have been together, married for about 30 years now. So they've always done and provided us the best life that they could at that time. However, growing up, and once I finally got to a place of being an adult and realizing like, hey, I have these choices that I can make on my own. I can do this, I can do that. I start realizing the disadvantages of certain things. For example, I went to college at UC Irvine, in Orange County. That was my first time ever realizing that being from where I'm from created a little bit of a disadvantage for me, because I tell my husband about this all the time. So I went to Locke High School. That's where I graduated from.
It's a lot. All
Yes.
right, all right, all right.
I did graduate top of my class. However, while I was there, again, everything that I was surrounded by was normal to me until I actually went to a predominantly white school, right? While I was there and I was meeting new people and kind of talking about our experiences, I feel like the disadvantage that I had coming from or growing up in Watts was that I could not relate to a lot of things that the people at my school could relate to. So I was very antisocial at the time. I was very closed off. Like, I think I only had, like, when I first went to UC Irvine my freshman year, I had like two friends. One of them was from Inglewood. Her name is Delicia. And I had another friend, and that was pretty much, those were the only people that I was really friends with, because I feel like those were the only people that I could really relate to. That was my first time feeling like that, kind of being from Watts. I had a disadvantage, because keep in mind, when people hear that you come from Watts, they automatically judge you, right? Especially when you say you went to like high school. If you're from LA, you know.
I do
So,
know. I used to take Inglewood off my address when I would apply for a job. I didn't
right.
want nobody to know where I lived at.
Right. And same thing. There would be times that I would apply for certain jobs, and I just wouldn't put my zip code on there, you know?
I do. I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So it would just be crazy sometimes. Like, I'll call my aunt, like, hey, I'm gonna use your address. Or, even I had an aunt that was in LA. Her name is Sherelle. I would use she lived a little further out, so she wasn't in Watts, but she was in LA. So I would use her zip code for certain things. I just feel like it was always a judgment, And then going back to what I was saying as far as the disadvantages with growing up, I remember when we were in school at Locke. I tell my husband about this story all the time, of how $30,000 seemed like a lot at that time. So there would be times where we'll have like not really career days, but when you go to like you prep for college and stuff like that, a lot of the times they wasn't really pushing us to go to universities or private universities. It was more so like, oh, it's a large part of my class went to like Cal States or community college. And I'm not knocking community college or Cal States at all. However, I feel like that was kind of what they felt like what was only available to us,
Right, because based on the school you went
based on
to.
the school that I went to,
Hmm.
and based on where we grew up. So yeah, I want to say my first time ever experiencing disadvantages, or me realizing that I did have a disadvantage, was when I first
Hmm.
went to college.
Yeah, that's interesting because they say, a fish doesn't know it's in water until you put it on land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I didn't know I was swimming in all this.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I feel very similar from Inglewood. Nobody was even pushing going to college. They was pushing who's going to graduate.
Yes.
That was more important.
That was more important.
Hmm.
And even when I would say, even like family wise, my family was so proud of me when I graduated high school. It was like, oh my God, you graduated high school. Okay, cool. Like, that's all. And
You
I
about
don't,
to get rich now.
yeah, like,
You
and it's just
own.
like, you got your diploma, because there's sometimes, like, for example, I tell everybody all the time, and something that some people don't know about me, is I'm the first person to go to college in my family.
Hmm.
And not when I say college, like a university, right?
Hmm.
Um, Literally the first.
The
So,
first to go to a 4 year.
yep,
Yeah.
4-year university. And that was shocking for a lot of my family. They were excited
Oh,
for me, obviously, but it was like the bare minimum, or not even the bare minimum, like like the me over exceeding was graduating high school.
which in a lot of cases, like you said, when you go to other places, you realize like y'all was about to go here since y'all was born. Like it wasn't
Right.
no option. This was but this for me is the pinnacle,
Yep.
and this is for y'all is the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would agree with that. And man, that is I've talked to a lot of people and nobody used that as recognizing when the disadvantage happened. Because like you said, you didn't know. Like my mom, I didn't realize until I was an adult that we were poor growing up.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You
we
know,
was poor.
when you're young, you're living this life, it's normal. You know, you don't have nothing to kind of compare it to. So it's like, oh, my mom and dad buying me the new J's, you know, like we got
Right.
lights on in the house, you
Like
know, stuff like that.
we
So
got the big bag of
chips, you know.
yeah, Fruity O's. You
Yeah.
ain't caring about them being Fruit Loops. You ain't tripping.
Right. So you don't realize that you're actually poor or, you know, in poverty because you feel like you have these things, but then when you meet other people and you talk about their life experiences, you're like, damn, well, I guess I was, you know, a little, you know, my parents was struggling, you know.
Underprivileged. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't realize it until you actually, I feel like for me, for example, I did not realize it until I actually went to college or I was
Yeah.
exposed to people who had different lifestyles. And although I always talk about, I kind of really did not enjoy my college experience. It was more educational instead of like, I hated it when I was in college. Just because it was so, many people that know UC Irvine is really, really an academic school. So
yeah, it's real white too.
Yeah, exactly.
You can
So
say it, yeah.
I literally was there. It was real white, right? So I was there just for the experience, and a lot of the times I felt out of place because I'm here. Here I am, this Black girl from Watts, here around all these white people. And
we should just went to Langston, you know what I'm saying?
Or, you know, it's funny. Like I applied to Cal State LA and I got accepted to Cal State LA, and my dad was telling me like, man, you need to just go to Cal State LA. And a lot of my friends that I was at Lock with, they were like, oh yeah, you know, we're all going to. A few of us are going to Cal State LA. A lot of us are going to go there. But I just knew that UC Irvine was one of the best schools, and I'm like,
you know, something different.
Yeah, exactly. But thinking back, I'm like, when I finally got there, I'm like, fuck. I mean, can
you good now? Okay. You good? You
I'm like,
there.
fuck. I'm so out of place, you know.
Nah.
But yeah, that's definitely a disadvantage.
Yeah, and I never thought about it that way, so I appreciate that perspective. And kind of moving forward to you as a professional, you started lashing. Is that what it's called? Is it called lashing?
Yes.
All right, help me out on my terminology. I don't get lashes, I don't know.
Yes.
But I've been seeing it, and it's very popular now.
Yes, very. So how I kind of got into that, so I went to college, majored in psychology. I thought that I was going to be an industrial organizational psychologist, was really kind of into it. Sophomore year, I was like, I don't really want to do this no more. I took a break from school for a little bit, and at the time, me and my husband, we weren't together at the time. We were just following each other on social media, and I remember posting a letter, and I was like, hey, you know, my school keeps telling me that they want me to come back because UC Irvine would send me letters all the time, like, hey, you know, pick up where you left off, you know, finish, you know, we want you to come back, finish your education. And I just took a break from it because honestly, one of the main reasons I left was because I felt left out. Like I didn't feel like I was, you know, belong there. Two, it was not what I expected college to be. Because when you watch movies and TV shows, they make college seem like this.
Woo!
Yes.
That's the whole time. You don't know what college is. Woo! Yes. Everybody's screaming.
You know, and it was really challenging academically. You know, like it was. We were.
Yeah. No, I do know.
Man, I was taking like 18 units freshman year. I'm like, oh yeah, I could do this, and I'm like, wow, like this is a lot, you know. But anyways, fast forward. Yeah, majoring in psychology, thought that was going to be my career, you know, for the rest of my life. I thought, you know, I was going to go to college, become successful. And that was the end of, like, you know, that was my story.
You had the Black person major.
Yes.
I know.
You know? And I went in, I was going to go in undecided. And then I was like, you know what? Sociology was, you know, everybody was doing. I'm like, psychology. I actually had an interest in psychology. So I'm like, okay, cool. Long story short, I went in, didn't have interest in it as much. Fast forward, I end up meeting my husband where we end up dating. And well, he actually encouraged me to go back. So I actually went back to college, finished everything out. And then I was
congratulations.
Actually, thank
I love
you.
That. Yeah,
So,
shout out to you.
So I I was actually working at this place called Waterways at the time, which is a river cruise company. And I always had a passion for beauty. So when I was in high school, one of my friends at the time, she was one of my best friends. We would go buy like these individual lash trays from like the beauty supply. They were like $1, and she showed me how to put them on. She would put them on. Her mom actually did hair at the time, so her mom would put them on her, showed her how to do it. She showed me how to do it. So I was like 11th, 12th grade wearing eyelashes, but I was doing them myself. So everyone will always compliment me on them. They're like, "Oh, your lashes are so cute. Your lashes are so cute." Moving forward in college, same thing. Everyone will always compliment me on my lashes. Your lashes are so cute, etc. So I end up getting into makeup. I always kind of had a passion for beauty, but like realistically growing up, it was never an option. You know, it was never like, oh, okay, beauty is an option where you can make X amount of money, or it was always, if you go to college, you get rich and you live happily ever after, right? So although I always had a passion for this, I never really put you know put effort into actually trying to figure out what I need to do to actually get into
So,
this
so,
field.
so let me ask you this: was there a point in moment, or like a experience that happened that said, like, some people say a bird, doodled on my head, and then I looked down my last, whatever. Was there a particular moment, instance, something that happened that made you that turned the light switch on that day?
um was it?
Or was it something you said, F it, I'm just gonna give it a
I
shot?
think it was more so F it, I'm gonna just give it a shot. So at the time, again, me and my husband was dating. He lived in Pasadena. I found this makeup school that was right down the street from his house. And at the time I was just trying to find any reason to kind of be in that area. So I found this makeup school and I went. I was like, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. I was working at the time in Calabasas. So I would drive from Calabasas to Pasadena. And I was already in Pasadena a lot at the time because I was dating him. So I was like, okay, let me just go to makeup school. So again, I've always had a passion for beauty. I've always wanted to be in a beauty industry. I went to makeup school, and like mid makeup school, while I'm there, everybody is still saying, like, oh my God, your lashes are so nice. I love your lashes. Like, so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've been getting compliments on my lashes since high school. Um, Fast forward, I kind of didn't have as much of an interest in makeup anymore once I started gaining more of an interest in lashes. So I took a lash class. It was a 2-day lash class, and my husband kind of actually really motivated me to do that. So he was actually a business owner at the time, and I think I was talking to him about it one day. I was like, dang, like, I really want to figure out what I got to do to start, doing lashes. And he was the first person in my life, or even in like surrounding me, my everyday, that was just like, just do it. And I was like, for me, for some reason, I feel like it was so much harder than what it actually
Right,
was.
right, right. We
He's
always
like,
do.
yeah, he's
Right.
like, just do it. And I'm like, you know what, right? I could just do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I did it. I signed up for the 2-day class. And ever since then, it's just been a wrap
Yeah,
from then.
because I seen you have certain levels in your business where you eventually opened up your own. Is it called
Studio.
studio? You see,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if the terminology matches, but I was
Yep.
gonna say, whatever. But you opened up your own studio, and what was like? Did you feel like I made it? Like I opened up my own
Yes, so that
business?
was I still have pictures in my phone. Honestly, there are some nights I'm just laying in bed and I look back at them, like the first pictures of me in my lash studio is crazy. So when I first started doing lashes, I was doing them out of my house in LA. So we moved from Watts, we moved to South Central LA. I was living with my parents at the time. I was doing lashes, like setting up my lash bed in the living room at my parents' house. I realized very early on that setting was not right for me or my clients. I wanted so much more, in the environment that I was creating was not going to keep clientele's coming. One, two, I didn't want everybody coming to my parents' house, right?
I
So,
know all too well.
but I started in my parents' house, right? So then after that, I remember my husband at he was my boyfriend at the time, but my husband, he had his office in Pasadena, and he was fixing phones. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, can I set up lashes in your phone shop when you're not taking clients on your
Right? Do
phone?
you
Like,
love me or do you not?
right. I straight up asked him, I was like, look, like, I can't keep doing this on my mom's house. You got a space. I don't have a space yet. Can
Right,
I trap out your
right,
your
right.
your office when you're not fixing phones? Can I take clients in there? He's like, yeah, cool, whatever. So I was like, okay, cool. And I started having clients come there. So
And by the way, I saw how big that space was, and it wasn't big at all.
it's
So
not.
the fact that y'all was willing to, he was like, for sure, and you was like, look, I'll make it work.
Yep.
That's awesome. I wish I had a picture to show people what kind of space that was, because the fact y'all was both in there getting it, it's
Yes.
admirable.
So I was like, okay, cool. So I was trapping out of his office for a minute, and I was like, you know what? I need my own space. So I end up looking. I end up finding a place in Glendale. A little bit of a backstory just so that people can understand how much I was trapping at the time. So I did not have a car. I had a car, and on my way to work, this kind of ties into the story. So I was living in LA, driving in Calabasas for work every day. That's about an hour, a little over an hour, driving to work every day. In the mornings, I worked at 6 a.m. to like 3 in the afternoon. So I would wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning to get to work on time, right? So on my way to work one day, I was so tired that I fell asleep while driving and crashed my car, completely totaled my car. So at that time, I was catching a bus from LA to Calabasas to
What time do you have to get up
Pasadena.
to catch the bus?
3 in the morning. I was getting up at 3 in the morning every day, sometimes 2 in the morning.
Wow.
Really just depends, because in my mind, I was like, okay, I have a job, but I'm trying to obviously get my business going to the point to where I don't have to, have a job. But I was just so determined that, like, hey, this is my job. This is the way that I'm making money right now. And in my head, I was so motivated on trying to get my car fixed. So that was another mistake that I made. I should have just bought another car, but I basically end up spending like $7,000 on getting my car fixed for it to end up getting taken away. So that's a whole nother story.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, right. But basically, I was catching a bus from LA to Calabasas to Pasadena at the time to set up my lash bed. I did not get a rental car because I would have been spending too much on a rental car, and the whole time I was just trying to save money to try to.
So you getting up at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And are you living in Whites at this time?
No, I'm living in LA.
Okay.
So
LA.
I'm.
Well, we're in LA because
South Central LA. So I was on like 54th and Avalon.
You in the hood.
Yes.
You on the east side too.
Yes, exactly. So it was times where like I'm grown. My dad will walk me to the bus stop because it's 2, 3 in the morning. I would be scared. But I'm like, shit, I gotta get to work. I would take the bus from there. The bus usually actually take me to downtown LA, which was very scary at the time. I actually had some very scary experiences catching a bus to work in downtown LA. But I would go to downtown LA and take the train from downtown LA to the Hollywood station. And the Hollywood station, get on the bus, take me to the valley to Calabasas, and then walk to work from there and do the same thing every day.
You know what's funny about that? We talk about the advantage, disadvantage earlier. When the advantage of you being from Wise, ain't nowhere else scary. It's like, what are we talking about? I'm leaving here. There's nowhere else that's worse than where I'm at right now. So
right.
So what are we talking about?
Exactly.
So yeah. So okay. So you would leave at 3 a.m. You get home around what time?
I would get home, if I did not go to Lash that day, I would get home around I would get off of work at 3. I would get home around 6. It was sometimes that I fast forward, I ended up getting my lash studio in Glendale, right? I would catch the bus from work to my lash studio. So I would take clients at 6 o'clock. My starting time would be, I would tell clients at that time, I think I told them I was working until 10 o'clock at night. So I would take clients from 6 to 10 at night. And sometimes I would just sleep in my lash studio because it would be too much to try to go from Glendale, catch the bus to LA, and then do it all over again. So if I knew I had a client that day, before I leave the house, I would just pack my clothes and I would catch the bus from LA to Calabasas. When I get off of work, Calabasas to Glendale, go in the I did not have a bathroom in my suite, but we had a bathroom a little couple doors down. So I would go in there. It would be times I would wash up in the bathroom, brush my teeth. I had a toothbrush, everything. I literally would be trapping in there. And my clients never knew because they thinking, I'm just showing up to my appointment. Realistically, I just caught the bus from there and I'm about to sleep there. So I had a couch in my lash studio at the time, and it turned into a bed. So I would just thug it on there and just pull it out. And I was just so determined on being successful with doing lashes.
Hold on, man. Listen, I don't know. It's people watching this right now, and they got to feel how I'm feeling. That is so admirable, you know. And how many people don't know that about you?
I think everybody don't know that. The only people that really know that was Bruce.
Right.
And now Everybody was watching the Facebook Live know that, but
And
I did not tell anybody. It was crazy.
and you know, I'm glad you're sharing this because some people will see, you know, outside of, you know, what it is. You know, we have an exterior, you know, that only lasts so long. And
Right.
somebody may, if anybody's questioning, like, I wonder why Bruce married her, you know, well, here you just got your answer. You know, like when you see something, you see somebody doing like that, you know, you just have an aberration like, yo, this person is about whatever it is they're about. And
Yeah.
that is truly special. So I really hats off to you. Hey, how old were you? Mind you, if you don't mind me asking.
I was
during this
what,
time?
21,
Getting it.
22,
Getting
20.
it.
Yep. At the time, because it was what? It was 2018 when I opened up my lash studio. I met him at 21. I was 22 at the time.
Wow.
Yep, and I was just trapping. I was just catching a bus. I would tell him, I'm like, hey, I'm about to take my client. I'm about to go to sleep. And I would go to sleep. I'll take clients up until 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I'll finish clients at like 11, 12 midnight. And then I'll go to sleep for like 2 hours, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and head to work in Calabasas. Did that every day.
Now that's man, okay. Well, hey, you know, I can ask you questions a long time about that one because that
Yep.
is truly amazing. Now you are a married woman.
Yep.
You are a mom.
Wife.
And I like to just, you know, briefly touch on that. You know, let's start with, you know, being a wife. Like people say dating in LA is it's like trying to find Tupac still alive.
It's true.
So how did you successfully do it and navigate?
I feel like where do I start?
And I gotta ask this because I want to know a woman's perspective on this because men feel one way about dating in LA, and I know it's another experience for women.
Right. So I'm going to be completely honest about this. When I met my husband, I was not looking for him, right? So I actually just got out of a really crazy relationship at the time. And we talk about this all the time. So he actually was following me on Instagram at the time. So I'm actually going to tell you how that all unfolded.
Go ahead.
So I was dating somebody at the time, right? And he actually told me to reach out to Bruce. This is gonna sound kind of crazy. He told me to reach out to Bruce to ask him how much he charges to fix his phone, right?
He said it. Man, he detonated his own bombs. Was you telling me?
Yes.
Dang.
So, but I had no interest in Bruce at the time, right?
Right. Fix my phone, bro.
Yeah, like it was nothing like that. But when I talked to Bruce about the situation, he tells me that he's seen me. When I reached out to him, he looked at my profile and he was like, you know, let me follow her. She's cute. How did this dude get her or whatever? If he could get her, you know, I got a chance or whatever the case may be. So, long story short, that's how I met my husband. He actually, the guy I was dating at the time told me to reach out to him to see how much he charged to fix his phone. The guy I was dating at the time never ended up getting his phone fixed. However, I never even realized that Bruce was the same person because he ended up following me on his personal page, and I was there was no face behind Wolf Wireless at the time.
Right.
So me and that guy ended up breaking things off at the time, and then he ended up, I guess Bruce seen me by myself on Valentine's Day, and then he slid in my DM. Okay. And was like, hey.
When it was still cool,
yeah. Right? And then, we started dating. I found out he was from Pasadena. Keep in mind, I being from LA, I had never really went to Pasadena. I always thought Pasadena was like a square city, like, you know, those SpongeBob SquarePants out there.
When in Pasadena.
Yeah, so it was just like, So when I first started dating him and I realized he was from Pasadena, I like asked a few people in LA. My friends like, hey, you know, y'all know him? Anybody dated him before? Anybody, you know, just trying to make sure. Yes. Right. So he passed all the tests. You know, nobody in LA that I knew dated him or knew him. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, I can give him a chance because nobody knows him.
Right.
And that's kind of how it went. That's how we started our relationship. I did ask around and I knew a lot of people in LA, born and raised in LA. I kind of know almost everybody. So nobody that I knew him. So I was like, okay, great. Seeing on Instagram, we didn't really have no friends. Yep. So I was like, okay, cool.
Now,
like
Bruce he hates LA, honestly. Yeah. So he don't want nothing to do with LA. So you're right.
So I was like, okay, cool. I can date him, you know, and it wasn't nothing against people in LA. I just was at a place where I was not interested in dating because I had just ended a relationship that, you know, didn't end well. And then also I was just like at a place where I'm just like, I'm just focusing on myself. I really don't want to date. But at the time, he was like, he was cool, you know. So I was like, you know what? Let me just hang out with him. It was never the intention of like, oh, I want to have a relationship with him or I want to date. Again, I was not looking at the time.
Right, right.
But we hung out, we went hiking. And that's another thing we talk about all the time because usually when a dude has asked me on a date, they're like, okay, you want to go to dinner, go to a movie, you know, I'll take you shopping, whatever the case
People
may
passing,
be.
that's what they do. So many hills, they can't.
He's
They walk
like,
to school to hike.
he's like, oh, you want to go hiking? I'm like, hiking? Like,
And you
what?
from LA?
Yeah,
We gotta
I'm
go
like,
hiking.
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, but I went hiking with him, and it was just we were together ever since. Every day after that, we just kind of like hung out.
You know what? Since we sharing stories that nobody ever told, I got to share one about you. You know what I mean? That you know how me and Bruce talk.
Yeah.
So when he first met you, he hit me that day, no BS, and he sent me your profile. He was like, bro, I just fixed this girl phone. Like, she bad, right? And he was like, yeah, she bad. And then when he told me like he had DM'd you, he was like, bro, she responded. I'm like, oh, okay, you know. So he is definitely on you. I would agree with that. He was not letting you walk past when he seen you, but rightfully so. And I'm definitely proud to see him and what he's becoming.
Yeah.
And I think he's picked an amazing wife.
Oh, thank you.
And now moving and an amazing mother. You know
Yeah.
what? Now y'all was married for what, a year before you had. He's what, 10 months now?
No, so
how old is little Bruce?
Yeah, 10 months. We
Okay.
were before I actually got pregnant. So we got married in November. I got pregnant 5 months after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Couldn't wait, huh?
It wasn't me. I was trying to wait.
Let's get it going now.
Yes.
Let's knock it out.
Yep. I was at a place where, so going back to my business, he and I would have conversations about kids. And for me, I did not, growing up, the way that I grew up, right? I was so adamant on not wanting to have kids until I was financially stable because I knew that the kind of life I wanted to provide my kids.
Right.
Going back to my business, so when I became a business owner, I can say that I made the most money that I made working for myself than I ever made working for anybody else. So anybody out there that, you know, working a job or, you know, they are questioning themselves or feeling like they can't do it, you can. I was at that place where I feel like I couldn't. Thankfully, I had my husband who kind of pushed me. He was already a business owner and he made it seem so easy that I was able to kind of knock down those obstacles and be like, okay, hey, you know, if he could do it, I could do it too, right? But I am a person who never posted on social media. Still to this day, I struggle with it, but never really posted on social media. My business grew from word of mouth. I was able to, coming from Watts, I built a 6-figure business by doing lash extensions. The most money I've ever made working for myself without promoting on social media, without doing anything of that sort, because I believed in myself so much and I believed in my craft and I had such a passion for it that everyone loved my work. And it was to the point to where everybody was like, okay, cool. You know, word of mouth, she does lashes, etc. That's how I built my business. Social media does help a lot, but this is just my experience. So when it came down to us getting married and everything, I was like, okay, cool. I feel like I was financially stable for myself. I did not feel I was financially stable enough to have a kid, and those were conversations that we were having. However, we went to a wedding one night. It was open bar, and couple weeks later, I had a positive pregnancy test.
You're gonna blame it on alcohol?
Yes,
huh?
but it's the truth. But when I found out I was pregnant, I was so scared because although I did have, you know, a 6-figure business at the time, and I feel like my finances was, I was making money, like, you know, I had money. I just felt like I still wasn't financially stable at the time.
Right. When you're on the big, because you got to do a lot of reinvestment and saving.
Yes, and that's not what I was doing. I was 23, 24, blowing money. We never was at home.
Right,
we was always gone. Like, dang, y'all going again? You know, because that was me. I feel like at the time I was spending so much time at work that when I did have my free time, I'm like, okay, me and my husband, we about to go here, we about to go there.
Retail therapy.
Right, exactly. So when I got pregnant, it was kind of like a rude awakening for me because it was like, hey, I made all this money doing, you know, within my business, but now that I'm pregnant, I got to kind of try to figure out, I got 9 months to try to figure this out because obviously when I first have my baby or our child, I'm not going to be working, you know, but I do want to be able to be financially stable. So I was like really stressed out at the time when I found out I was pregnant because I was just like, dang, in my head, I was like, okay, well, I can lash up until I have him, or, I did not have my finances in order at the time, I
So
should say.
let me ask you just specifically about that.
Uh-huh.
Like having a child, having a business where you are the sole proprietor, sole
Right.
owner, everything it falls and rises on you,
Right.
your availability to be there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And now bearing a child, which is one of the greatest miracles, but also one of women's greatest challenges.
Yes, very.
How do you do that with how do you handle that with a business? What challenges and what, I guess, say advantages and disadvantages did that have?
I may get a little emotional talking about this because it's a sensitive topic for me. But it's very challenging. One of the most challenging things I ever done in my life. Now, I'm still figuring it out. That's my answer. He's 10 months now. No one could have told me that I was not going to be able to have my child and then go back to work 2 weeks after, right? That was in my mind. That's what I thought was going to happen. Completely different.
That's logical. You wouldn't account for the
Yes. Yes.
emotional tie, right?
Exactly. So I did not count for the emotional tie. I did not count for me wanting to, so the reason I wanted to be financially stable before I had a child was because I knew the kind of mom I wanted to be. I wanted to be able to be home with my mom. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I wanted to also be able to afford to be a stay-at-home mom, right? Like I wanted to be able to say, oh, I can be home with my kid for a year if I want to, and I got enough money to back it up.
Right.
Was not the case, right? So when I had my child, everything changed. One, my birth plan didn't go as planned. I ended up having to have an emergency C-section, which kind of delayed my process of even thinking of going back to work. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to have him natural. I'll be healed, go back to work in 2
Right,
weeks,
I'm
no
gonna go to
problem.
Africa, have them in the
Right.
sea with a bunch of African, midwives. I know, right? We
Mm-hmm.
had this mirror,
Did not
this right.
did not happen that way. And it was kind of like kind of rude awakening for me. I did not go through postpartum depression, but I did go through baby blues. I did feel like there was a lot of times I felt depressed. I do want to thank my husband. He was there for me emotionally through that time because obviously, when you first have a baby, the baby, you're so hands-on with the baby. It was not much my husband could do at all. I was strictly exclusively
There's nothing we can
breastfeeding.
do.
Right. So I appreciate him for being there mentally for me because that's what I needed the most. Even still to this day, we still have our moments. But going back to the challenges, I would say, I'm still figuring them out now. I'm still trying to navigate being a business owner and a mom. Obviously, being a business owner kind of had to take a back seat when I had my child because obviously he's priority.
And I seen you lashing with your son
Yeah.
there. Like I seen you getting it in. Like
Yeah, so I want to say like 2 months into after he was about 2 months old, I was telling my husband, I'm like, hey, I need to still, do this because I have clients waiting for me. It was times where I just told my husband, like, hey, you got to come with me to my lash studio. He came with me to my lash studio to kind of help with the baby while I was lashing. At that time, I was trying to create a schedule to where I would do it while he was sleeping. But it would be times he'll wake up, he only wants me. So it was
yeah,
really
it's
challenging.
his schedule. Ain't no schedule.
Yeah.
Baby schedule.
So,
Right.
but it was times where my husband was taking naps on the couch in my lash studio, the same couch I was sleeping on when I was catching a bus there with our baby while I was taking clients in there. It even got to the point to where I end up closing my lash studio down and trapping out the house. I
Right.
still to this day now, I'm taking clients out of the house, but I'm still doing it,
Right.
Right now I just work around him, being asleep if I could. If not, my husband helped me when I have clients coming in, but it's still a challenge. Being a business owner and being a mom at the same time was something that nobody could have prepared me for. What I thought my reality was is completely different from what it is.
Yeah, and it usually is. And I've like I said, I have two children of my own,
Mm-hmm.
and just after seeing the second one, it just makes me really appreciate what moms really do. Like you be thinking,
Yes.
why Mother's Day is more important than Father's Day? Well, listen, it's not really. Do we have to go through this? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and it's really challenging. Like I really am trying try to hold back my emotions from this because it's really crazy. No one could prepare you for it. I love my kid to death. That's a love that I never thought that I would ever experience.
It's the first, to me. It's the
Mm-hmm.
first true unconditional love that you give. We
Yep.
receive it when we're younger from our
Mm-hmm.
parents, right? but it's the first time you have to give it.
Yeah, and I remember when he
Mhm.
was first born. So he was about a month old. I had thought I was going to take a client at the house, and I was trying to put him to sleep while my client was there. It's been times my clients have been chilling at the house for, they've been outside for like an hour waiting for me. Their appointments at 8, like 10 o'clock. They've been out there since 10. Sometimes I don't get to service them until 11:30 because I'm dealing with my child. But they love my work so much that they actually
Mhm.
understand, you know. And sometimes my husband be like, "They still out there waiting." I'm like, "Yeah, they know I gotta prioritize my kid. I gotta make sure my kid is settled
Yeah.
before I take care of them,
Yeah.
you know." But I did have a client one time. She was out there waiting. She's like, "Oh, so when are you gonna be done? You don't have a time." I'm like, "Listen, like my child is my priority. I let you know that in the disclosure prior to
Mm.
accepting your appointment. You know, I have to make sure my child is settled first." She wasn't really happy with that, and I'm like, "Okay, cool," you
Yeah, I
know.
understand. Yeah.
But a lot of women, and majority of my clients are women, and some of
Mhm.
them have kids, so you know
They
they
get
kind of
it.
understand.
They get
But
it.
I would say this has been the most challenging time in my entire life since I could remember even being a child. A lot of things I've experienced growing up where I grew up, you know, catching the bus to work, all those things are minimal compared to trying to juggle the life of being a mom and still being a successful business owner, or still trying to navigate figuring out being a mom and how to balance these things, because I was very unmotivated after I had my child. You know,
Mhm.
I was very, he was my main priority. So
Right.
I was not motivated to
Right.
lash. I was not motivated to do a lot of things
Husband
except
feel
for being
left
a
out.
mom.
We worried about. I
Yeah.
already know you ain't cooking. Like, bro,
Yeah, I
I'm already knowing.
literally, my main focus was making
Yeah.
sure, you know, my child was okay and he had everything he need. And
Yeah.
it did, my business definitely took a back seat for a
For
little bit.
sure.
But I appreciate all my clients that kind of stuck by and stuck with me. And it's picking up now,
It's
obviously.
gonna get easier,
Mm-hmm.
and we know this. Like the hard part is kind of over.
Yeah.
Now he's communicating, moving around a little bit. You
He's starting to get
understand
more
now.
independent. That's my little guy.
Wait till you go to school and you got till 5 o'clock every day. You ain't gonna know what to do. So,
Man,
so
we be joking about that. My husband tell me all the time, you gonna be like, "All right, babe, we gotta
we
go
go
pick
to
him
the
up early
movies
from
on a
school."
Tuesday. What?
No, but I tell him that I'm like, I
All
can't
right.
wait for him to go to daycare. It's gonna be
Yeah,
us again. You
it
know, we're
is.
gonna
It
go to
really
the
is.
bar until he has school. Like while he has
True.
school, we're gonna
Truly is.
start having dates again. Then when he get out of school, you're gonna pick him up
A
and act
hundred
like we
percent.
didn't do
I
nothing.
do. I'll tell you how many times I call it eat
Hmm.
cheating. We eat cheat on my kids all the time. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Nah.
But
So
I
yeah,
appreciate, you know what I do. I look forward to those moments, but I appreciate these moments with him as well because it's not gonna last forever.
yeah. Of course,
So,
it's
but
beautiful.
business wise, I feel like I'm at a place where I'm starting to try to figure it out again. You know, I always remind myself of what I was. And honestly, I know other women may need to hear this as well. I was really hard on myself in the beginning because I had these expectations of what I thought my life was going to be like after I had a child. And I didn't realize that that was my time. Not only was my body telling me to just chill, it was a place in my life. Like I've always been on the go since I was old enough to have control over my own life because I always wanted better and I always wanted to succeed, right? I always wanted to be the best at something that I did. So I feel like when I finally had a child and I had to sit down and I had to care for my child as much as I did, and we had help. You know, we had our parents that actually wanted to step in and help, but it was a priority for me to want to be hands on with my child. You know, I wanted to thoroughly experience being a mom without with just my husband and me, you know, and I feel like I had like everything else kind of had to take a back seat at that time. It was very challenging for me though, but it was a reality because it's like if you can ask Bruce. When I before I had him, I was never home, and it wasn't just because I did not want to be. It was because I felt like I always every day I had to do something. I felt unsuccessful if I did not make a certain amount of money every day, or if I did not do something productive every day. So when I had him, it was very humbling. Like I had to
Yeah, and
just sit at
it
home.
don't even matter, and he don't care what you got going
Yeah,
on.
it's he
Yeah,
like this is what it is, mom. You about to
right,
chill right here for the next 10
right,
months.
right, and rightfully so.
Mhm.
And like I said, I mean, you know, you're handling it great. I've seen it firsthand. Like I said, I'm not a mom, but I see what y'all go through, and it truly is like the strongest. I wouldn't trade positions with y'all at all. I'll tell you that right now. But here we are. You know, we've reached. We're heading. You know, we're running third, as they would say in baseball. You know, headed
Mhm.
home to the end. Um, it's my final question. Found two questions I'd like to ask. We just started a whole new year, 2023,
Right.
and it's a moment to reflect on the past 12 months, and you have a lot to reflect on. Your
Yes.
whole year's changed. So if you were able to sit right next to that couch and talk to yourself, just your 1 year ago self, not I tell people not when you were 5, 10 years, literally 12 months ago,
Mhm.
because the experience and you are a totally different person. You weren't a mom 12 months ago.
Yep.
So what would you tell yourself 1 year ago if you had the opportunity to talk?
I would tell myself to be kind with myself. Don't be so hard on myself. Be forgiving of myself. I'm not perfect. Everything is going to happen when it's meant the way that it's supposed to. Take my time with myself. Don't rush things. And I would also tell myself to just be gentle, be forgiving, be loving, be open to what may not be the reality of what you may think your life would be. I would also tell myself to just have grace with myself. Be don't be so hard on myself when I don't do something that I think that I'm supposed to do or whatever I had planned. Um and I would also just tell myself to just relax, just take a time to kind of relax and kind of explore those other roles that I have other than just being this business owner that just have to do or move a certain type of way. Embrace who I am and embrace being a mom and a wife and things like that as well when that time came, of course, because we're talking about what I would say to myself before the year had come. But yeah, I would just tell myself to be kind to myself because I feel like throughout this past year I really beat myself up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. It's just that moment of reflection, like,
Yeah.
well, who was I 12 months ago?
Not the same person. It's
No.
crazy. Being a mom changes your brain. It changes the whole way that your brain is wired. The way that you think, everything is crazy. I'm
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
crazy, crazy
No, it is.
experience.
It is. It truly is. And my final question is a piece question. It has multiple parts, so I'll walk you through it. Also, reflection on knowing that one day will be our last day.
Right.
And I think that what we don't get the opportunity to do often is to think about that and think
Mm-hmm.
about, man, every day ain't promised. And if there's people that I want to say things to that I probably should say to. So I like to start off, if this was your last day, and we'll start in with parents. What would you want to tell your parents if this was your last day and opportunity to talk to them?
Yeah, I would just tell them that I'm sorry for the way I was growing up. When you have a child yourself, you kind of understand your parents a little more. I would tell them thank them for everything that they've done, everything that they tried their best to do that I probably did not realize how hard they were going, or the sacrifices that they made because I was so young and naive to certain things. I would tell my parents thank you for everything and I forgive them for, all the things that I felt that they did not do right. Because obviously, as a parent, it does not come with a manual. We literally learn as we go. I'm still learning. And no one's perfect. I think those are the main things that I would just tell my parents. I love them, I forgive them, and thank them for everything. And I'm sorry for not understanding. Obviously, we're young and we're naive, and we don't know certain things. But I would just tell them, I'm sorry for having these expectations of them or thinking that something is supposed to be a certain way and it's not.
Yes, it's funny. When people don't got kids and they give you advice about them, you're like, I understand you thinking logically.
Right.
Wait till that emotional part is in there.
Right.
But moving along, if you have any siblings, what's something that you would want to let them know if this was your
Ooh,
last day?
this is a touchy one.
Yeah, it might get there a little bit.
Yeah, I do have a sibling. I have a brother. We are not the closest. We have like a 7 year age gap, right? So we kind of grew up differently. I would just tell my brother to kind of be don't be so hard on himself, but at the same time, know that there's so much more out here than what he's exposed to, and I want so much more for him. Hey, I'm getting a little emotional, but I just want the best for him and I want him to always know that. And for him to, be wise with the decisions that he's making in life because, we only have one life to live. And I kind of feel like, um, I kind of lost a brother, my cousin that was like my brother, and it scares me sometimes that sometimes my little brother looks up to him so much that I get scared that he's going to take that same path at times. And if it was my last day on earth, I would just tell him, to just kind of do what he has to do so that he can make better choices and, be the best man that he can be for himself and his future kids.
I think he probably will watch this one day, and I think that y'all got siblings got their own language,
Yeah.
and
he know what I mean.
yeah, he does, and he can sense it in the emotion.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'd like to move to your husband. What if your husband? What would you want to let? What would you want? What do you want him to know?
um I want my husband to know that I love him and he knows that he's my soulmate, and even in the afterlife we'll always still be connected. And he's literally my world. He is. I love him so much. And even if I were to die today, I would always want him to move forward and be happy. Not with another woman though, because he can't remarry. I'm gonna hunt them. He knows that. But no, seriously, like I just want my husband to know that I appreciate everything that, he does, because he's actually, since I've been a mom, I've needed him more than I've ever needed him in every way, and he's
Mhm.
really stepped up and kind of showed who I married at my lowest time, which I feel like the lowest space I've ever been in my life ever was after I had our child, and my husband's definitely showed up and showed out. And I just want him to know that I really do love him, and he's my soulmate. It's not much that I can say in words to describe how I feel, and I think he knows that.
Yeah, I would agree. He's younger than me, but he inspires me as if he was older. So I can only imagine. And then I always like to in this one with this note, I suggest people not use any names
Mhm.
because most of us have a long list.
Right.
But the homies, and I don't want to say just the homies, but the ones who you consider sisters or brothers, those people who are blood couldn't make y'all no closer. You know what I mean? What would you
Right.
want to say to them?
Well, I won't use no names, but the only person that come to mind when I think about this is my best friend. She know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody pretty much know who she is, but that's my dog. Like, if this was my last day on earth, man, I would just tell her to continue to be the best mom she is, being the best friend that she is. She inspires me a lot in certain ways that she don't know. Again, she has really showed up and showed out too throughout my darkest time, and it kind of really made me realize how important she is to me as well. If this was my last day on earth, I would tell her that, man, live your best life, because she has been through a lot, and just move forward with forgiveness and no future fears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is anybody I miss? I know sometimes we have like cousins or that could be no closer, but
Yeah, I
we
got a
can
few
go
of those
far.
too.
If
She
you want
know
to put
she
them in,
know
a,
she
you know
know
who
who
she is.
she is
All
as
right,
well.
right on.
She just had a baby.
Okay.
She been through a lot too. I would tell her to just, love herself more than, you know, the love that she wants to get from other people. Um, she knows that I'm always here for her and things like that. But speaking on, I keep kind of getting sidetracked. But if it was my last day on earth, I would tell her to do what I would do when it comes down to a lot of situations, and she know what that means. um, but yeah, I would just tell her to live her best life also, and live every day knowing that she deserves everything that she wants in life, and don't let nobody stop that from stop her
Mhm.
from achieving that. And even when I leave this earth, she knows that I'm always going to be with her.
Okay. And it's our last one. So, this one, if I get you to cry, I did my job. You know what I'm saying? Nah, I'm just playing. Your son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's of course you don't understand what you're saying now, but this lives forever. So
Yeah.
one day he will get the opportunity to see this. What do you want to tell him?
Man, that's my baby. um just do whatever he has to do to make himself proud. Not me, not his dad. Do whatever he has to do to make himself proud, be the best human being that he can be. Um, know that I'm always gonna be with him. He's always gonna be a part of me. I'm always gonna be a part of him. And mainly just navigate life with doing whatever makes him happy. I want, him to be able to achieve everything that he wants to achieve. Sky is not the limit. It's higher than that for him. And yeah, I just want him to be the best little guy that he can be in life, and that I don't want anything to ever hold him back from any dreams or aspirations that he have in life. I want him to literally live his best life and do whatever that prioritizes his happiness, because we only live once, and I know how important it is to be able to I know how important happiness means, to humans, and that's kind of what we all want in life, is to be happy. And I just want him to be able to navigate all that and be his best person that he can be in life. And hopefully I'm able to help him set that up before my last day on earth. But that's what I would tell him. Live his best life. Gracefully, full of love, and make sure that he always forgive and move with open heart.
Nice. Well, he will, like I said, he get the opportunity to hear straight from you. Nobody can tell him what you said. You
Yep.
said it right. You got face
And his mom loves him
verification.
more than anything in this world, and that's my stinker butt, and that's
Yeah.
my little booty.
You be like, Ma. Well, I do appreciate you coming and being vulnerable with me today.
Yeah, I was very. You messed up my
No,
makeup.
you solid, you solid. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you holding it down like you done. Story very, very inspiring. This actually marks the longest interview I've done. So, um,
And this is the first interview I've ever
yeah, well,
done.
look, see, it's good for both of us.
Yeah,
So,
very
um,
emotional.
I appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. You have heard from Brittney Palmore, entrepreneur, businesswoman, mother, and wife. Thank y'all for watching.